Could you imagine what it must have been like on that Sunday morning when they came to this tomb? They came to check on the one whom they had put their hopes and dreams in. And all of a sudden they saw that the rock was rolled away. They went in. But they didn't find anything here. Why? Because he was risen. I'm standing here in Jerusalem, having just discovered this ancient biblical site, the Garden Tomb, the place that it is believed that Yeshua was buried and rose from the dead 3 days later. You know, every major event in the life of Yeshua happened on a Jewish holiday. He died just a little ways from here as the Passover lamb, and he actually rose from the dead on a biblical holiday as well, which we read about in Leviticus 23, which helps us understand the background and the great significance of the resurrection. This is what it says in Leviticus 23, verses 9. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel. When you have come into the land which I give you, reap its harvest, you are to bring the omer, the sheaf offering of the first fruits of the harvest, and you are to wave it before the Lord." Messiah died and rose from the dead in fulfillment of first fruits. The significance of the first fruits was that if you had a good first fruit, which was the barley harvest, it was a guarantee that you would have a later abundant harvest. And Paul actually uses this idea of first fruits, this biblical holiday, to describe what Messiah did for us in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 23 and following. This is what we read. "But now Messiah was risen from the dead, the first fruits of all those who have fallen asleep. For since death came through one man, the resurrection of the dead also comes through one man. For all are dead in Adam, but all are made alive in Messiah. But each according to its order, Messiah the first fruits, and then those afterwards at his coming." So because Messiah rose from the dead as the first fruits, it is the guarantee that we will rise from the dead as well. First fruits is all about hope. Hope is the belief that our future is going to be better than our past. And because Messiah rose from the dead as the first fruits, it is the guarantee that we are going to rise as well. Because he died and rose, it is the guarantee that we have been forgiven and we have eternal life. And that's why it is called the blessed hope. His resurrection means that we have a hope and an amazing future. And that hope should transform us here and now. This is not just an ordinary tomb. But as you look around, you can see this is the garden tomb. See, it's significant that Messiah was buried in a garden. Why? Because how did it all begin? It all began when God put Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava in the garden. That was where they were placed. That was where creation began. That's where they took of the tree and partook of the fruit, which led to our downfall. So it's only fitting that Messiah, who comes as the second Adam, should be buried and placed in a garden, because because Messiah came to bring about the new creation, that the old should pass away and that the new should come. And not only is this a garden's tomb, but this tomb is actually a fulfillment of messianic prophecy, because Messiah, Yeshua, was not a wealthy man. He could never afford a tomb like this. This is where someone of stature and means were buried. But Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus made sure that he was buried in this place. And in so doing, they fulfilled what was written in Isaiah 53 verse 9, that he was buried with the wicked and with the rich in his death. Being in this rich man's tomb was part of God's divine plan to fulfill what he spoke through the prophet Isaiah 700 years earlier. Isn't it amazing how God works all these things out? And just like he worked out everything in the life of the Messiah to fulfill everything that was written, he will work out every detail in your life to fulfill every promise he has ever made to you. Friends, I just want to remind us that it's really significant that Yeshua rose from the dead on the third day. The third day is of great significance. Messiah died and rose from the dead in order to bring about new creation. When we think about new creation, you have to go back to the original creation. It's so significant that Messiah rose on Yom HaShlishi, on the third day. Because the third day of creation was the day that God created the trees, and that would have included the tree of life as well as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's the tree that man and woman ate from that brought the world into the state that we're in today. So the days that the trees were created, the third day is the day Messiah rose from the dead in order that we might partake once again of the tree of life. Rising on the third day was also the fulfillment of an important biblical passage, a prophecy found in the book of Hosea chapter 6, beginning in verse 1. It says this, "Come, let us return to the Lord, for he has torn us, but he will heal us. He has smitten us, but he will bind us. After 2 days he will revive us, and on the third day he will raise us up, that we might live in his presence forevermore." That passage was ultimately talking about the Messiah, who rose from the dead on the third day. And in Hebrew, it's significant that 3 days is 72 hours. Every Hebrew word has a numerical value. The numerical value of the word chesed, of God's loving kindness, has a numerical value of 72. Messiah rose after 3 days because the resurrection was one of the greatest demonstrations of the chesed, of the covenantal loving kindness of God towards you and me. And that's awesome news. No greater love than this, than a man will lay down his life for his friend. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever should believe in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. God's hesed, his love for you and me, is why he died and why he rose again, so that we might experience the fullness of life and the fullness of love in him.